So welcome everybody. Today we're going to be talking about sleep. So we're going to be covering three main issues. What is sleep quality? How disrupted sleep affects your well-being, physical and mental, and tips about improving your sleep. So what is sleep quality? So we've all heard about, the quantity you need to maintain a certain amount of sleep for health and well-being, whether we are a child or an adult. So normally adults would need 7 to 9 hours of sleep to feel healthy and restored. However, it's not really just about the hours. So the quality of the sleep is extremely important. So how do we judge sleep quality? So there are four main things that we look at. We'll look at how long it takes you to fall asleep, or sleep latency. So the aim is to have less than 30 minutes till you fall asleep. The second is how long you are awake once you've actually established sleep. So it's not uncommon for people to wake up a couple of times during sleep, but you would like to be able to resume sleep again within 20 minutes. And then thirdly, how efficient your sleep is. For example, are you spending 10 hours in bed, 10 hours asleep, or 10 hours in bed, 5 minutes asleep? There is a big difference. So in most adults, we aim for about 80 to 85% sleep efficiency. And then lastly, how many times you actually wake up. Are you waking up 20 times a night, and are you able to resume it within a certain amount of sort of reasonable time frame? Why is that important? Well, sleep is quite pervasive. It affects many body organs, and it affects how you generally function during the day. So during sleep, we generally have many of our restorative processes occur, including repair and rejuvenation of cells, consolidation of memory, mood and processing emotions, cleansing of toxins from our organs and our brains. So good sleep can help you regulate your emotions better, as well as perform well in cognitive skills, in learning and attention. So what constitutes a good sleep cycle? There are generally 4 stages of sleep. The first stage is where you're transitioning between wakefulness and sleep, and generally lasts only about 5 to 10 minutes. Generally, stage 1 occurs at the beginning of the night of sleep. However, if your sleep is really disrupted, you could have quite frequent stage 1s during your sleep period. The second stage is where your body temperature now starts to drop and your heart rate begins to slow down in preparation to getting you into a more restorative sleep. Generally lasts about 20 minutes, and it's characterized by certain criteria that we see on sleep monitors, like what we call sleep spindles. In stage 2 as well, you continue to transition into deep sleep. So stage 3 is now the start of what we call slow wave sleep or deep sleep. Your brain waves at this stage are slower, so we call them delta waves because they are slower. This is where your muscles tend to relax. They're not paralyzed, but they're relaxed, and your blood pressure and breathing rate starts to drop. And this is the deepest and most restorative part of the sleep. In some people, if you're having difficulty waking up in the morning, generally what we call sleep inertia, so a prolonged period of fogginess or impaired cognition after waking up, it's because they in fact have woken up from this type of what we call slow wave sleep. And lastly, stage 4, or we call it now REM sleep, where rapid eye movement. So REM stands for rapid eye movement. So literally the person, you can see their eyeballs are moving underneath their eyelids, where it's moving quite rapidly. And that's where the most active part of sleep. You're actually having irregular heart rate and irregular breathing, and it's the stage closest to wakefulness. And usually where most dreams occur, although dreams can also occur in other stages of sleep. So how much sleep do we actually need? And that can vary depending on how old you are. So for example, newborns and infants, we all know, need quite prolonged period of sleep, but also the amount of deep sleep, or the slow wave sleep that we were talking about, is really important. And as we get older, the amount of deep sleep can vary. So from the age of 18 on, you generally need a bit less sleep, and in the elderly, the range of sleep may be a bit more, between 7 and 8 hours, rather than the classical over 18 young adult. I really like this infographic, and it comes from the US actually, in one of their military schools. But it really summarises how pervasive sleep can be to all aspects of our lives. So why is sleep important? Well, it helps us sleep, and getting sufficient good quality sleep helps our physical fitness to recover better, helps our muscle memory, it helps us for injury prevention, balance, coordination and sleep, and speed. In terms of also, it helps with mental fitness, so ability to regulate mood and emotion, how you respond to stressful situations, how alert are you, and your ability to sustain wakefulness. So when you're driving, how alert are you about circumstances that are out of your control, and how quickly you can respond to stresses. Decision making and problem solving, obviously learning and memory are very important in all aspects of our lives, whether you are 6 or 66. Also, in terms of medical fitness, we know that sleep can actually affect how your body's ability to fight infections, respond even to immunizations, how your body heals, and whether your body develops chronic diseases or not, such as heart disease, diabetes, obesity, etc. But very importantly, and we're beginning to realise that it's actually quite pervasive in terms of also your hormonal control, so your hunger regulation, your blood sugar regulation, what your body weight is, as well as your general mood and spiritual fitness. So we'll talk about this a bit more deeply. So what are the effects of sleep deprivation? So if we don't get enough sleep, why does that happen? Well, it may be self-inflicted, like most of us, where we work for too long hours. It may be that we're sleeping at the incorrect time of day or later in the day than what we should. It may be because we have a sleep disorder, and those disorders are quite important because most of them can be treated to improve your health and general well-being. So sleep is needed like eating and breathing. You can't really hack sleep. Sleep is essential, and so you do need it for healthy function of your whole body. As you can see in this infographic, so many things are affected. So studies showed that a good night's sleep improves learning and memory and problem solving, but also a good night's sleep not just on the night before that help you retain information, but the night after to actually then code that information that you've learnt during the day. So in fact, sleep is important before a task and after a task, i.e. all the time. On the other hand, sleep deficiency changes activity in some parts of the brain, and so that the impairment can then follow on from even just simple poor decision making to anxiety, depression, even increased suicide and risk behaviour. So during sleep, our body heals and repairs. It helps support a balance of our hormones and helps support growth and development in children, but also helps us fight germs. The main thing that governs people's sleep is the circadian rhythm, or the master clock. The body has a general rhythm of about 24 hours on average. There are two processes that interact to control this rhythm. So one is your pressure to sleep. Well, what does that mean? Every hour you are awake, there is a pressure that builds up to help you get to sleep. So the drive for sleep peaks in the evening for most people, and therefore the compound called adenosine seems to be one of the factors that are linked to sleep drive. And while you're awake, that level of adenosine in your brain continues to rise, and the rising level of this compound can signal sleep onset for most people. And while you sleep, conversely, the body breaks down adenosine and so it falls. The second process involves the internal body's clock. So the clock is in sync with certain cues in the environment, however, so such as natural light and darkness, and cues even from body organs and so on. And so, for example, a light signal received through the eyes can tell your brain that it's daytime, and it helps align the clock with periods of day and night. Where does this actually exist? Where does the clock live? So we talked about the circadian rhythm being roughly 24 hours, and that's it's governed by a sort of a signalling system of hormones and chemicals within the body that dictate to you when to sleep and when to wake up. But it also controls digestion. It can control body temperature and even eating habits. So within a 24 hours, so 24 hours is roughly about where most people are. However, in women, the circadian rhythm is slightly longer than 24 hours, and that's why women tend to be slightly more morning people. In men, they have a shorter circadian rhythm, and they're more likely to be night owls, although this is not a hard and fast rule by any means. But problems can occur if the body clock is not aligned, and therefore people have poor quality sleep because their body hormones that induce sleep are not released at the correct amount for them to sleep. And so inside, where do we find this sleep clock? It's inside the place called the hypothalamus. So you can see in the picture there that there is some information on the slide of the SCN, which is called the suprachiasmatic nucleus. Quite complicated, but it's in red there, right in the middle of the brain. And basically it's made out of roughly 20,000 cells, and it's sometimes, this is what we think is the master clock of the body. And it receives input from the eyes, which is important because that's how daylight and darkness can feed back into the brain as to regulate our rhythm. And so when the light change in the environment, there's a signal for the SCN to signal to the body that you to release different hormones to induce people to sleep. And so for this reason, in winter, we might want to snuggle up into bed a bit earlier than we would in summer. So one of the very important hormones that this SCN releases is melatonin. Melatonin helps us all get to sleep. So it makes us feel drowsy, and it generally it starts to get more secreted late in the afternoon as it gets darker and it builds up. And the brain then starts releasing melatonin, and as that hormone begins to rise within the body, we begin to feel more and more drowsy. Bright lights can actually inhibit the release of melatonin, and so that's a feedback system that happens in most of us in modern life, is that we're feeding back to our body that it's still light time, and it can actually delay and impair the release of melatonin, and therefore we don't fall asleep at the desired time that we want. So conversely, when the sun rises in the morning, the body then produces different hormones called cortisol to get you up and ready for the day. So knowing all this information, how do we then get a better night's sleep? Well, knowing the information about melatonin, if we actually then use that to our advantage, we expose ourselves to lights early in the morning and then dim the lights later in the afternoon, that will help us synchronize our hormones to get a better night's sleep. Reducing blue light, again, that light exposure, so we're not confusing our body systems late at night with the extra bright lights. Caffeine, or actually it's not just caffeine, but caffeine is everybody's favourite drug, and it's really readily available and smells quite nice sometimes. It's a coffee. Any stimulant really, nicotine, caffeine, other types of stimulants that are available, they tend to build up and of course delay our sleep or impair our sleep or cause us to wake up numerous times during the night. If we have really irregular or very long naps during the day, that takes away from the sleep pressure system that we were talking about. So it's like someone paying back the debt to the bank. Their overall balance is lower. They won't reach their peak need for sleep till a bit later. Avoiding alcohol at night, and again, alcohol can impair some of the body's ability to, it can actually induce sleep, but sometimes it actually breaks down sleep and makes you wake up later during the night. Eating late in the evening goes back to the feedback to the clock. So if we're feeding back to the clock that this is a time for us to be active and eat, it will then again delay our sleep time. So we want to eat not too late in the evening, roughly about 3 hours before bed is a good time. And also the constituents of that food. So high energy foods late at night, probably not the best choice. So other things that can make us comfortable, and like taking a shower or a bath at night, is really good, but however, we don't want to raise our body temperature too much. So body temperature, again, as we said about the sleep stages, the body temperature goes lower, your heart rate goes slower. So we don't want to increase activity, so exercising late at night, having really hot showers late at night can actually inhibit that sleep onset. But everybody likes comfort, obviously choosing a comfortable environment, whether it be from noise, whether it be a good mattress or a good pillow, whether it be from light, so block out. So if you particularly have a bright room in the morning, you might want to use block out curtains or something like that. Exercise, well, exercise works on the idea of cortisol being a hormone that gets released in the morning. So it's really good to exercise, and perhaps exercise more in the morning to get the body into a much deeper sleep later at night. And of course, the dreaded drinking too much before bed. We all need to go to the toilet. You don't want to do that too much either, but obviously keep yourself well hydrated during the day rather than having too much liquid in the later part of the day. So thank you very much. I hope this has been useful. Thank you.